Yeah, so important to have mentors, to have sponsors. To just have be able to call a friend, somebody who can say it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
And so what I
Right,
would
right.
say is reflect back on your high moments. Maybe graduating high school, maybe getting accepted
hmm
to the university, maybe passing a really difficult class that you had to do an overnight with, maybe winning a championship in one of your sports teams. Think about the most successful times of your life and document that. Have a doc.
So the fear, no, protects us, but the other objective of fear is that it just paralyzes us.
Welcome to this episode of How to Get a Job podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to master your mindset because, look, the reality is that finding a job is very, very stressful. There's a lot of downs. It's a roller coaster. And if you don't have your mindset right, you're going to prolong this process. And to talk about this important topic, I have an amazing guest with us today. I have Claudia Gama, and she is a career coach and founder of Claudia Gama Coaching and Consulting and Talent at EDU. Claudia, how are you today?
I'm good, Daniel. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure to be here today.
No, I'm very excited, and we connected on LinkedIn, but I'm really excited to talk to another Colombian career coach that also works with clients both in Colombia and the United States and all around the world. And I'm super excited to talk a little bit about mindset. And I kind of want to start by saying, why do you think mindset is such an important factor of the job search process?
Yeah, well, thank you, Daniel. Actually, it's very important because before we go into obviously looking for a job or doing a career transition or anything that we have to do career-wise, obviously our mind is everything, no? So it's very important to ensure that we have worked on our mindset, like what type of fears do we have, or do we have any limiting beliefs? Like what is our attitude towards the whole process of doing a transition in career or looking for a job. So I think it's very important and should be like the first part of the first area that we look into before going into looking like for a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the things that we overstep or we overlook as job seekers because we just want to start applying and start networking and we just want to start working on the interviews. But if we are not mentally sharp, if we are not, in a good mental mindset, right, or mental state, that's going to translate in the way we communicate both on networking and interviewing, which ultimately will prolong the whole process. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes the job seekers are making when it relates to mindset during this process?
Yeah, actually, what you just mentioned, I think what I try to do with my clients is to first, initially, like what I first do is to try and to look at the why, what I call the whys, like the first step in what I do. And then what we try to do is to try to pinpoint what has meaning for him, for her, what has meaning for me, for my career, what fascinates me, and what's stopping me from taking the next step in my career. And then when I ask them that question, usually what comes out are a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of fears, and so I do a lot of work with fears because um, fear is like an emotion that eventually has two objectives. No, the first one is that the fear also protects us because thanks to the fear we don't just start getting the first job that we see in the market, or we just resign and no without having another option. So the fear, no, protects us, but the other objective of fear is that it just paralyzes us.
Hmm.
Okay, so it doesn't let us move forward. So a lot of work has to be done there in order to be able to first identify the fears that we have, obviously related to career, but in the end, it's like fears that we have, what we're afraid of in life, in general, because we're just one person, no? And obviously our personal life and our professional life, it's just really in the end one. So I do a lot of work with fears because it's like a way of clearing the path, like clearing the path in order to be able to pursue either that job search process or a career transition. So we have to let our ego, like say, okay, you're ready to go into this new path. So let me just identify the fears, work the fears, like discover them, and then we can move forward. No,
Yeah.
so don't like not allow the fears to just make us like freeze, or paralyze.
What do you think are the most common limiting beliefs job seekers have?
Oh, there's so many, and the limiting beliefs, they usually originate very early on. Okay, so depending on what our background is, as you mentioned in the beginning, I work a lot with. I live in the U.S., but I work a lot with international students, not only Colombian but Latin American, European, from Asia, and many are working here in the U.S. So, for example, a very limiting belief that's very common is I'm international. I need sponsorship. I will never be able to get a job in the US because the situation is very difficult. That's a limiting belief. But other than that, like I'm not good enough. Okay. I'm not well prepared. The career that I studied is not marketable anymore. It's going to be obsolete because everything is going on with technology. So I'm not going to be able to find anything. So it's just like the imposter syndrome comes out very quickly and starts talking to us. And so we have to be very, very careful to not allow that imposter syndrome to paralyze us, okay, or to be an obstacle. So that's why we do have to identify that those limiting beliefs very, very early in the process.
Yeah, it's so interesting because to me that's why working with a career coach becomes so important. So I was talking about this with one of my mentees early last week, or sorry, yeah, earlier this week during office hours, and the question came to, like, we were talking about limiting beliefs, and we were talking about the mental fight that we have, because when I asked them, like, hey, like last week when you came to office hours, you asked me some questions and I gave you some homework to things to execute, but he didn't execute any of them. But he told me, he's like, hey, Daniel, like I've been going through a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and I just haven't been able to do anything. And I said, look, the best way I found to kind of get over some of that limiting beliefs is through action and to working with a coach. Because look, when we are struggling and we don't believe in ourselves because we think like, hey, I'm either underqualified for the jobs that I'm going for or I'm overqualified, we always, as humans, are always thinking of the worst case scenario in our mind. But when you have a third party person that's gone through this route and has helped a lot of people land a job, they can tell you and say, hey, you're very close to getting it, or you're on the right track, or you're going to get it if you continue to take action. And if you don't believe in yourself, when someone else does, that level of confidence is going to push you to take the action that is required to get the job. Um and it's funny because I recently was going through some, like, like business, right? Just like finding a job, business is a roller coaster. And I was going through some challenging, this is like about 6 months ago, I was going through some downs in my business, and I was super concerned, right? And I was having imposter syndrome. I was dealing with all the same feelings that job seekers are dealing with. And I remember calling three of my mentors that are very successful business people, and I was explaining to them my situation, and they just laugh. And I'm like, why are you laughing? Like, the world is ending for me, right? And they're like, Daniel, because you're gonna be okay, because you're gonna be fine, because you're controlling the controllables, you're putting the work, and that will eventually pay off. And that reminded me of when clients come to me and they're saying their world is ending and that they're not gonna ever gonna get a job. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? There's no way that 40 years pass by and you don't have a job. You will get a job. And it's because I've gone and walked through that journey, and I've helped so many others walk through the journey, that from a bird's eye view, I know that they will get it and they'll be successful. And I think that's where, when you have an advocate, a coach, and mentor in your corner, that's going to help you with those limiting beliefs massively.
Right. Oh, yeah. Everything that you said is so important. And I think you mentioned there's something that for me is like my purpose, is to help them build confidence, and the only way that we can do that is first, obviously, identifying those limiting beliefs, identifying those fears, identifying what type of mindset I'm at, and then knowing like what's my value proposition. What am I good at? What am I good at? And it doesn't have to be like the technical skills, because they're going to look at that later. The technical, but it's like, what am I good at? And it's like, what are my talents? I try to not call them so much skills yet, like at the beginning of the program, but what are your talents, or what are your gifts? What is it that comes so easily for you that you don't have to, that it's not a struggle? Okay, so once we are able to identify those limiting beliefs, those fears, and work on them, they're not going to go away, but we can, by identifying them, we can, they can let us, like, move forward. And then, what am I good at? What comes so naturally to me? That's going to be like our value proposition. But I also call it like the avocado, the core of the avocado. That it's something that's just like me. It's my essence. Once I have clarity about that, then I can go into the second step, which is going out and looking for the job. But then that's going to be my elevator pitch, when I'm interviewing, or what I'm going to be able to transmit in my resume or in my cover letter. But if I don't know what that is, it's very difficult to pursue either a job searching process, or a career transition, or a change in my business with confidence, with self-confidence. So um, in some cases, we have to do a lot of more work in that area. Some cases, not as much, depends. But in every case, like all of my mentees, my clients, we've always had to work something in that area.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, because that's going to define what type of mindset I have in order to be able to take the next step.
Absolutely. And Claudia, how would you suggest starting on the clarity path? How would you suggest identifying those limiting beliefs as an individual, right? Because I think for us, we can help them identify that. But if the people listening to this podcast don't have a coach yet, or don't have a mentor, how would you suggest them getting started to self-identifying those limiting beliefs internally?
Well, yeah, it's a beautiful question, in the sense that what I try to do is, I'm also a life purpose coach. So I know, apart from my like my professional development, I'm also a life coach and a life purpose coach. And as a life purpose coach, what I try to do is to, um, or I tell everybody, we have two areas, in our psyche, or we have, in our personality. We have like our ego, which is good. I mean, it's where we, or our thought process. It's where all our logic comes. Like, you have to do this, and this. You have to do a pros and a cons. You have to go out and do your resume. You have to have your LinkedIn profile very optimized. You have to prepare. You have to start applying. That's our ego. But then we have a most, like, the more important part within ourselves, which is our intuition. Our, that internal voice that says, there's something that's not allowing you to move forward, or, it's like the gut feeling. So try to listen to that voice, before our ego starts saying, okay, you're not. So if we listen to that voice, we're going to be, okay, what's not allowing me to move forward? what what makes me wake up in the middle of the night? Or why am I feeling like anxiousness, like, like my body is feeling like I have, like heart palpitations, or I'm sweating when I'm starting applying? It's because there are some limiting beliefs or some fears there. So the best way to do it is just writing it down. Like, try to do journaling, or if you do meditation, or mindfulness, or just going out and walking your dog, what comes to your mind in those moments. And then, if you're very conscious about those thoughts, that's the way to identify, what am I afraid of? What's keeping me awake at night? Um what am I feeling? And it's very move I mean, towards the emotions, like, what am I feeling? No, and that's where my work is, especially at the beginning. Obviously, if you can have a coach, wonderful. If not, try to do it alone. And then, if you identify that the process, like for career searching, or job transition, or career transition, it's going to be smoother, because it's just going to clear the path.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would say, to add to that, I think what I found for me is like find someone who's accomplished the goal that you've accomplished. Like I think to me the best way to reach any goal is to find someone who's done it already, because success leaves clues. And when you are struggling in the process of like, hey, like how do I get clarity or how do I reach that goal? Sure, if you cannot find a coach, if you haven't found one, or you can't afford it for whatever reason, it's okay. Find someone who's done what you want to do, someone that works at the company that you want to work for, and ask them about it. Because when you can have a third party helping you get clarity on that, that's going to be really great. Also, talk about it with your friends. I would just say don't bottle it inside of you, because that's going to just eat
Yeah,
you
no,
alive. So it's important that you're having
exactly.
and you're bringing it to light.
Yeah. Oh, that's so important. You just mentioned, obviously, in the second part of my program, I work a lot with networking. I know that's also something that you really also recommend to all of your clients or mentees, is a lot of networking, a lot of networking, and speaking to people who have done that. Like try to find mentors. Try to find mentors that you can call and say, I'm really stuck, or what is it like to work in such company? What is it like what advice can you give me for my career trajectory? Is it okay to make changes? Because sometimes, especially young adults that are just starting the career, that they feel like they have to find the job where they're going to be for the next 20, 25 years, and I tell them, no. I mean, there's evidence that tells us that you're going to be making many changes in your career, and that's okay. As long as you have a career story, as long as you have, what your value proposition is, and then as long as you identify that core, everything else is just going to start to come into place. But you just need to find it within yourself to find that confidence,
Yeah.
and then yeah, so important to have mentors, to have sponsors, it's just be able to call a friend, somebody who can tell it's going to be okay. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay. In the end, when you look back, you're going to be able to connect all those dots, um, and it's going to be okay.
I,
It's going
One of the best things that I found to help me with building my confidence and building and helping me get out of the rut when I am feeling down, anxious, depressed, is kind of reflecting back and being grateful for the things that I've already accomplished. Right. And I say this because odds are, if you're listening to this podcast and if you're in the United States and you have a college degree, you might not have a job yet, but you have a college degree, or you're about to get your college degree. Think about how much more successful you're going to be or are already than a lot of people who haven't even gone into college, who haven't even graduated high school, who have not even been able to pass a class that maybe they failed before. And it's not about saying like you're better than others, right? I think it's the thing about life is that there's always going to be somebody that's better than you, and there's always somebody that's going to be worse than you. We live in this world, and so when we're in a down, when we're down, we try to compare ourselves with people who are better than us or have reached a higher level of success than us, and we tend to disregard all the people that have already surpassed or overcome. And so I want you to also, as you're reflecting up and you're feeling like a loser and that you're failing in life, don't forget to look back and say, look how many people you are ahead of right now, and be grateful for that. Also, whenever you're up, because there's no such thing as feeling down if you haven't felt up, if you haven't felt those highs before. So if you're feeling down today, it's because at one point in your life you felt the highs. Because if you've never felt the highs, you would have never been able to feel the lows, right? There is no black without white. There's no light without darkness. And so what I would say is reflect back on your high moments. Maybe graduating high school, maybe getting accepted to the university, maybe passing a really difficult class that you had to do an overnight with, maybe winning a championship in one of your sports team. Think about the most successful times of your life and document that. Have a diary, write those notes, read those times that you felt high, because you can go back and say, okay, I've won before. I've been successful before, which means I will be successful again. Look, in the storm, and you look around and you're in the middle of a storm, it feels like it'll never be light, but there will always be light at the end of the storm.
right. Yeah, Daniel, what you mentioned is so important, and that brings me to what you mentioned at the beginning is the mindset. Because when you have gratitude, then you're you're moving from a positive mindset, from an abundance mindset. Okay, you can only look at life from two ways. One, it's an abundance mindset, that's where there's gratitude, when it's something, when there's optimism, when there's enthusiasm, when there's inspiration, when there's like faith, like there's something good that's waiting for me, and I can look at it from a gratitude. The other way is from a scarcity mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and usually when we're looking at things from a scarcity mindset, that's when we start to compare ourselves, or when the imposter syndrome comes out, very, very strong, and says, you're not good enough. Are you crazy? You're not going to be able to do that. You don't have enough education. You don't speak the language well enough. You don't have enough credentials. Look at your friend. Look at, and so we're looking at life from a scarcity mindset. So, and it's okay, obviously we're always going to be moving back and forth, but what's important is that we're able to recognize
Yes.
when we're moving from a scarcity, and usually when we're on this side from a scarcity mindset, it's that it's fear based. There's a fear there, or there's a limiting belief that's like the origin. So we try to, that's why it's so important to identify those fears, identify those limiting beliefs, and then try to say, okay, no, let's try to change and look at my decision, from a abundance mindset, from the heart. It's like when you feel it. Like sometimes they come to me and say, okay, Claudia, now I have 2 job offers, like I don't know what to do. Okay, let's try to do this, and not only look at the pros and the cons, because that's the ego, that's looking at the list, the Excel sheet, all that, but what are you feeling? No, what, when you envision yourself in that job, what are you feeling? Is it something that you like what you're feeling, or you're like, oh no, what did I get myself into? I could have done. So then maybe that's not the right choice. So everything is life is just one or the other. And obviously we move through life, from going from one to another, but it's just important to identify or to recognize, like they say that 80% of our process is awareness, that when we're aware, then the 20% we can work on it. So that's why it's so important to start a process, whether it's career search, job search, or career transition, or any process in life, like trying to start with the self-reflection, with self-awareness, with self-discovery, and then we're going to have all the tools to be able to go into like the doing, like the doing.
No, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And as we kind of wrap up and kind of recap this episode, I think the important thing is understanding that it's totally okay to feel overwhelmed. It's totally okay to deal with imposter syndrome. It's totally okay to be down in the job search process. In fact, it's actually normal and natural. And in fact, I would say over 80% of the clients that I work with, we have to deal with some sort of imposter syndrome, motivation, some of those limiting beliefs before we can actually start the process. And I know, Claudia, that's something that you specialize a lot and work on a lot. So if anybody listening to this podcast wants to learn more about your services and how they can work with you to help them with their job search, and especially overcoming some of those limiting beliefs that they might have, what does your programs look like, and what's the best place to reach you?
Oh, well, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, of course. Well, my program is like what I just mentioned. I have a methodology that integrates obviously my background also in business and finance. I worked in education, so obviously my almost 30 years of professional experience, with obviously my training and coaching. So I have a program that has 4 steps, and the first two, I work on the being, which is what we've been talking about, like, and I call them the why and the who, where we do a process of self-discovery, self-awareness, so a lot of self-reflection. So that's like the coaching part, and self-discovery, like where we're going to do like the talents, and then we start moving them into, okay, what is your skill set, technical skills, soft skills, and that's the second part of the program. That's the how and the where. So it's, okay, what are your target now that we know what your value proposition is, then what are your target companies, target industries, what type of roles, and obviously we look at the resume, we looked at LinkedIn. Now I also work a lot from LinkedIn, trying or ensuring that they have an optimized LinkedIn profile. And I also prep for interviews. So that's like the doing part of the program. So it's a 4-step program, and that's where initially the coaching, and then like more the consulting part, like in the second part. And no, I can be reached. Obviously, I'm LinkedIn and Claudia Gama Rojas. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have also an Instagram account, Klaus Gama Coach. I'm not very active there, but I have some information there as well that you can contact me. But probably, LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn, so that would be like the best way to contact me.
So we'll
Mhm.
put your LinkedIn in the show notes. Claudia, thank you so much for
Great.
joining the show. And I appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge with the audience.
No, Daniel, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I always listen to your podcast as well. So also congratulations on everything that you're doing. So congratulations on that too.
Thank you so much. And for everyone listening, catch you guys in the next episode. Enjoyed that episode we did with Claudia, as I love talking about mindset because it's something that is super underrated and something that is really ignored, right? It's a lot easier to create a viral post on LinkedIn and TikTok talking about interviewing, networking, right? Talking about salary negotiation, right? All those tactical aspects of finding a job. But the reality is that it starts and ends with mindset. Look, at the end of the day, when an employer is hiring, they're making an investment in you. And if you're going to an interview and you don't have your mindset right, an interviewer, whether it's a hiring manager, the recruiter, or anybody else, can tell that you lack that confidence. And if you lack confidence in the interview, it's going to make it very hard for you to get the job, right? And I think that's why mindset is so important. And look, this is coming from someone that didn't deal with any mental health issues until I started my business. I just couldn't relate. In fact, I used to think like, hey, if you're having a depression, just go read a book, go, go change your mindset by taking action. But I've come to realize that there is some chemicals that do affect the way we think, and it can get to a point that we're not productive, that we can't concentrate, and we're not able to do it. And I see that with my clients all the time, where they come to me and say, hey, Daniel, I didn't apply to any companies, even though I'm running out of time to get a job because I just dealt with so much depression and anxiety that I couldn't concentrate. And that's where I want you to take this mindset and mental health very seriously, right? And that goes with just sharing with you some of the best practices that we found our students make. If you're an international student, the number one priority you should do is stop the clock, right? It's not that you can't get a job in 90 days, because you can. But when you have this clock against you every single day, the amount of pressure that you receive cannot be released soon enough. So our strategy for our clients is stopping the clock. And there's multiple ways to stop the clock, right? And the most common ways is to go back to the university that you just graduated with and let your professor know what's going on and see if you can do some sort of research for free. Do a free internship. That's an easiest way we found to stop the clock. Or go to some local nonprofits to do that. And then if that doesn't work, there's other alternative of you having to start your own business, your own LLC in America. It's a little bit more complicated, but if you can then work 20 hours a week related to your major, that also will allow you to stop the clock. Stopping the clock is going to give you that mental, I would say, stability to continue to do it. Second thing, be grateful. Look at gratitude. What have you done in your past? When you can go and reflect on the success of the past, it'll give you confidence for the success of the future, right? Think about all the things you've overcome already, right? Like coming to this country, getting accepted, graduating college, all the success you've had in your life, write it down in a gratitude journal, in a gratitude document, a gratitude sheet of paper that you can read when I'm down. One of the things that I've done, this is actually an advice for one of my best friends, when I was feeling really down, it says, next time you're feeling really up, record yourself a voice note. Record on how you feel. Talk about why you're so happy. And play that note, the voice note, to yourself when you're feeling down, right? If you can go back. So when I'm feeling down about my business, I go and watch testimonials of all the clients that we've helped and all the lives that we changed. So that doesn't allow me to quit. And I think it's the same thing for you. Think about all the times you aced that test, you passed that class, you've been accepted to the university. All those times count. And so double down on that. And third, do not take this burden by yourself. Talk to people. Talk to your friends. Talk to your professors. Talk to counselors. talk to your coach and mentors, right? Put yourself in a community. If you need a community, we have one, right? We offer one, right? There's a reason why my coaching program, even though you get assigned to one of our career coaches and you have a one-on-one component, there's still a community component because we understand the job search process is very, very, very lonely. So my advice to you is find people that are going through the same thing you're going through and talk to them, encourage them. It's not about putting people down. It's about lifting each other up. When you work together, you can accomplish more. So look, if you are an international student and you're struggling and this is very hard and you're looking for a team of experts to help you, I want you to consider working with us. And I want you to come to one of our workshops, attend for it for free, be part of our program for 1 hour in a sense, be part of the family for 1 hour and see if working together makes sense, right? If being part of this community makes sense. Because a lot of times when you don't believe in yourself, you just need someone that believes in you. And after helping thousands of international students land amazing jobs, I know the journey that it takes to be successful. And after getting to know you, and if I can get to know you, if I tell you you can do it, it's because you can do it. It's because I've seen other people with similar backgrounds than you do it. And if you're struggling to find people that believe, if you're struggling to believe in yourself, find people that will believe in yourself for you and will lift you up and help you gain the momentum. Again, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you find value. If you did, if you find any value at all, do me a favor. Share this with one of your friends that might be struggling with this, someone that needs to hear this positive message. All right, and give us a review. I will appreciate you more than you know. Have an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode.